Ryan Gosling plays a school teacher who's been sent deep into space in what turns out to be a lonely mission to save the sun. Based on a book by the author of The Martian, this is a hopeful story in cynical times. Join us as we discuss Project Hail Mary. Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is David.
My come in peace.
This is a science fiction movie podcast. We get together and we talk about a sci-fi movie. It's that simple. And today we're talking about a brand new release, which is Project Hail Mary, which is based on a book by the same author who did The Martian. The screenwriter of the movie is even the same writer who wrote The Martian, Drew Goddard. Although this is Phil Lord and Chris Miller directing this one. And I've heard people around me hype this up for some time, although I kept myself spoiler-free going into this. I didn't really know much about it. I knew Ryan Gosling was in it. I knew he was alone in space, but that was about it. That was the extent of my knowledge.
That seems to be Andy Weir's thing is, hey, look, this guy's alone in space.
Yeah, pretty much. But we'll start spoiler-free, of course, as we always do. We'll give you warning before we get to the spoilers. And if you're enjoying the show on YouTube, please do hit the like button. It helps us out a bunch if you do. And you can support everything that we do over at Patreon and get some bonuses. But I'll tell you more about that at the end of the episode. So, yeah. Honestly, I'm a little conflicted as to how much of this I should consider spoilers. I feel like there's one giant thing I just shouldn't talk about. So...
I'm curious what you think the giant thing is. Because, like, if you absorbed any of the marketing of this movie,
sure,
I feel like it gave it away. But I do agree with you that if, way down the line, like 20 years from now, if somebody's watching this movie, it does feel like the kind of thing that's meant to be a surprise.
The movie doesn't hint at it until it happens. And it's a good, it's a 2.5 hour movie. I'd say it's at least a good half hour, 40 minutes before you get to it. So
yeah,
I think we'll keep that free, which means we'll be keeping some of the ideas very out of the spoiler-free section.
All right.
But, we'll give some impressions, see how we feel, that kind of thing, before we get to it. But yes, you can actually go back and check out the Martian review episode if you would like to. So
yeah. Well, I guess just to start with that, at the end of episodes, I do a homework where I go back and talk about something that you and Tara did. I've never done The Martian. I have seen The Martian. I rewatched The Martian, and I guess I'll just get out of the way to make it easier to talk about it in comparison with The Martian. I really do like it. I think The Martian's a fantastic movie. It is very well put together. It's just this constant stream of something goes wrong, and then watching these people work to fix the problem. And I like that. It's a very well-made movie. Keeps the emotion high as well. Does a good job of balancing all that. So collectively, score-wise, I'm going to say 8.5. I think it's between that and a 9 for me, depending on how I feel. This rewatch, it was an 8.5.
Is that also your homework movie at the end of this episode?
That's the homework movie, yeah. I'm just saying it now. We'll just get it out of the way. Because I'm sure over the course of this review, I'm going to want to talk about The Martian, so I may as well just say, here's what it is.
Okay, all right. So there you go. But yeah, we'll see how we feel about Project Hail Mary. I mean, I guess I'll ask this. Did you know much about the premise of this before you sat down to watch it?
No. My brother is very into Andy Weir's books. As soon as this was announced, he was all up on it. He was like, oh, this is going to be great, fantastic. But he knows how I am with movies, so he was very cagey on details. He didn't really tell me much about it. Suffice to say, I got that same sort of hype up that you got from other people.
Yes, people who had read the book were really hyping this one up. And it was easy to kind of buy into it because, I had seen The Martian. I liked The Martian. Phil Lord and Chris Miller aren't exactly bad names to have attached to something, especially if it's supposed to have any humor in it, which this does. It would make some sense. So, but yes. Also, for the first time in my life, I think, I went to the movies to see this, and they said, oh, there's a free thing you get with a ticket for this, and they handed me this. A little beanbag ball thingamajig.
That's so strange.
All right. And obviously, I hadn't seen the movie yet, but I just kind of assumed, well, I'm going to assume this is in the movie. And it kind of is. It doesn't look the exact same as this one, but it's there. So yeah.
What if the little gimme that they gave you was like a super spoiler? It was just like something where it's like end of the movie. It's like, here you go. And you're like, wait a minute, this isn't what I think it is.
No, so I was sitting squeezing this like a stress ball, like the whole movie.
I have to imagine. Maybe across the pond, your movie theaters are a little bit better than ours. But in American movie theater, I would imagine that those things, every single showing, people would have to come in and clean up the entirety of the insides of those from at least like 12 of them.
I mean, I don't know. I have no idea, but I thought I'd mention it all the same. So yeah, we'll get into it. David, what did you think of Project Hail Mary?
I really, really liked it. As I'm watching it, I couldn't help but make comparisons to The Martian. Like, it's got a lot of similarities in structure, in the way that like the characters act, sort of thing. However, I would argue that this one is just a bit more, I don't even want to say generally accessible, because it's Martian's still very accessible, but this one feels a lot more almost Spielberg in a way. It feels a lot more like blockbustery.
It's a lot more fantastical. It's not like Martian is trying to be as grounded as possible, and while this one doesn't go like nuts with like the technology or anything, like it's a little bit further ahead. It seems still fairly grounded in reality, but not as much as Martian, where it feels like Martian's all about problem solving using real theory and
it's
real,
all the technical stuff. Yeah, this one's a lot more of just the broad ideas or whatever. In terms of like, I can't get into that much of the big stuff without spoiling it, but in terms of the later developments in the movie, I think this movie does a great job of balancing the more techno, like, you know, working through the problem sort of stuff that was present in The Martian, and also presenting the deep emotional impact of it. Like, I think that this movie does have like a deeper layer to it more than The Martian did. The Martian was a great study of like, okay, here's one guy and just fighting for survival and whatever. This one feels like it has a lot to say on a bunch of topics that I can't directly say without spoiling, but it's very emotionally charged by the end of it, and I really appreciate how deftly that was handled. It didn't feel like it was overplaying its hand too much. I think the only thing, like, criticism-wise, is that there's a couple of choices that are made at the beginning of the movie that feel like it slow it down to a point where I could have used it a little bit faster. I don't think this movie had to be 2.5 hours. I think we could have moved a little bit quicker through the first act, but from what it was, I mean, if we're adapting the book, I'm sure it was all required for that point. So I'm not going to complain that hard on it.
And as expected, from what I hear, is that there's stuff that was cut out from the book as well. So I mean, this could have easily been 3.5 hours if they'd, you know, put everything in that they felt like. But
Project Hail Mary, an Amazon original miniseries.
Yeah, oh, it's weird seeing an Amazon film at the start. Also,
I know.
Also, so the MGM logo came up as well, right? And obviously, Amazon own MGM, so they're kind of like, it's like they want to put it's kind of like how Sony always put their branding on a Columbia movie, even though, like, you own Columbia, just let it be Columbia. But the only reason why I'm bringing this up is because they used like an old school MGM logo. It was the old red and white colored version of the logo from a long time ago.
Yeah, I thought that would tie into something, like maybe we would open up the movie with something set in the past, but nope.
Honestly, I've seen it done a couple times in the last few years with the Universal logo, where they'll use the 80s one, and it feels just kind of like, it feels like they just have the choice, like, do you want to use an old one? And some creators are like, yeah, I like the old one more. It feels kind of nostalgic, and that's it. So
that's fair.
But just worth mentioning. So yeah, I mean, the movie's very good. Like, I think it's got a lot of heart, and The Martian had heart in a lot of ways too, but The Martian had heart in kind of a different sort of, it was like a different lane of heart. This here has a very specific type of heart, and I can see why you say Spielbergian, particularly 80s Spielberg, well, 70s and 80s, I guess. I would say it's definitely got that, a little bit of that in there. I'll maybe disagree a little bit in that the structure's that's similar to The Martian. I think that the structure's the one thing that actually felt the most different to me in comparing the two. But there is a lot of parallels, and just, you know, isolated guy in space. I think some beats particularly at the end of the story, feel almost intentionally like hey, there's kind of a different version of that scene from The Martian almost, which we'll talk about. But I think it's funny. I think it's got a lot of heart. I think Ryan Gosling, in many ways, is perfect for this role. He has the charisma to pull this off. Despite the fact that he's, considered one of the most handsome men in the world, he's very good at being kind of awkward and feeling like he has a bit of an outcast, despite the fact that he doesn't look like he should be. So, credit for that. I think the production value is pretty much through the roof. You're in a spaceship a lot of the time. That said, though, we don't spend the whole time in the spaceship because the structure lends itself to... We basically start off and he's already in space, and we get like a sort of, linear flashback sort of building up to how he eventually goes on the mission. Starting all the way from okay, this is when the anomaly that starts off the investigation and the space mission is founded, and it just goes from there all the way up, and we're dipping back to that through pretty much the entire movie. So that's very much kind of the ping pong structure as we're going through, and also those sequences have a different aspect ratio, which I'll point out, which was funny because it did this thing. So my theater, the screens are, I mean, if you don't know aspect ratios, this may not make any sense, but the screens are 2.4:1, right? So, which is typically the wider format, all right? So anything that's like narrower than that, say 16:9-esque, it won't go all the way to the sides, right? So it's constant height and it always stretches out. And the only time it's not touching the top and bottom is if something's wider than the typical wide aspect ratio. So something like Hateful Eight, which was like 2.55:1, ultra wide. Dunkirk was another example of one that was super wide. But this movie, interestingly, the flashbacks are a wider aspect ratio. So I think the main one in space was maybe like 2.2:1 or maybe 2:1, something in that range. It's
2:1 in general.
Yeah, there you go. So it's hard to tell by eye, but fair enough. I guess it was something in between anyway. And interestingly, the Earth stuff was wider, but instead of like going out to the sides, it actually came in from the top and bottom. So it was like bars at the top and bottom, which was really weird because it felt like there was just like a rectangle in the middle of the screen as opposed to...
Yeah.
So it just felt like a weird choice to project it that way. So I'm not even critiquing the movie for this. It's more just the choice to format it that way for the projectors in the theaters is just a little bit strange. But, it's a minor quibble.
Yeah, I mean, with the idea that it is a 2:1 format, if they were to go with the wider, it would almost make the past scenes feel larger. Yeah. So having it more cropped down does make it feel like it is, inherently a bit more disconnected from the audience.
I've got a sneaking suspicion, because this is saying in all the posters, film for IMAX. I have a sneaking suspicion it's done this way in mind more for the IMAX, which has super tall screens, and therefore the space stuff will always feel larger in the context of... So I'm assuming that in IMAX, all the space stuff was shot with IMAX cameras and all the Earth stuff was just shot with traditional cameras.
Probably, yeah. That's I'm reading the filming section, and there's a lot of numbers being thrown around here, but that seems to be what roughly we're seeing.
Yeah. So I suspect this is just a knock-on effect of they wanted to feel bigger for space, and they filmed that in a taller ratio for IMAX, and the result is just a bit weird on a regular screen. I wonder how they tackle it for the home release, because it would be very weird for it to get boxed in and just have a complete box on the outside for the Earth stuff.
Yeah, I still think they might. I still think they might do it that way, because it's, again, to make it fill out the entire screen as it feels like it should, it gives a different vibe as to like what is something you connect to more. Like having it boxed in makes it feel just more disconnected.
Yeah, but keep in mind though, it would be on a 16:9 screen, so it would actually still be getting bigger for the space stuff. It would be getting taller.
Yeah, true. I don't know. Could be either way.
Yeah. So anyway, the technical talk out of the way. It was worth bringing up.
We need a little jingle for whenever there's an aspect ratio, just so people can like know that that's happening.
It was just funny because it was like a weird transition where when it first happened, I was like, wait, what's this changed to? Wait, was it not that shape before? Why is it so small now? And I was like, I actually was paying attention in the next couple of scene transitions to clock what was happening. But anyway, so no, the movie's charming. It's funny. I think the plot is engaging. I like the problem they're solving. Because when I first heard a vague premise of this movie, it was like, oh, something's wrong with the sun. I was like, oh, it's a sunshine lake where we're going to go off to set off a nuke in the sun. That was just my assumption. And it's a little bit more different than that and more complicated in a way that I do think is interesting. So we'll get into all that later.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate how, because that's the thing about The Martian is like the problem in the broad spectrum is very simple to describe. Man trapped on Mars.
Yes.
How does live. This one, same thing. It does the exact same thing of the broad problem is so easy to describe of there's something wrong with the sun. However, when it goes in depth of like, here's what's wrong, and it just keeps on layering on detail upon detail on detail. If you're keeping up with the details, if you're really like understanding all that, and I think the movie does a good job presenting it, it adds to it, absolutely. But I think that even if you're glossing over the details a little bit, if you're not totally following it, having that broad problem in mind of, okay, there's something wrong with the sun, it still is enough to get you engaged. It still is enough that the movie is keeping you there of like, okay, this is what we're doing. This is the general thing. So when the characters make progress, it's something where you feel like, okay, even if I don't know exactly how this is working, it still makes sense towards the larger goal. Yeah.
So I'm just thinking about how much more I want to talk about. I guess we could talk about music and things like that. I mean, the score did stick out to me. I was noticing it at several points.
Very jaunty. It's a very like upbeat, jaunty score for the most part.
Yeah, and there's obviously the emotional beats and moments where it really kind of, it wants to be a bit more on the uplifting side, I would say, and it's definitely going for a more positive, optimistic kind of story. So the music kind of reflects that and how it's presented. Which also doesn't surprise me after The Martian, because I actually, my biggest critique of The Martian is that it's a very good movie, and I really like the problem solving, and I like the characters, and I like everything going on. But the one thing about it that sticks out to me whenever I've watched it is that I just wish I felt the danger a bit more. It kind of felt like a movie where everyone was going to be okay no matter what, right?
Yeah.
This movie... watching my wording here. This movie, I feel like I didn't have the same problem, and it's not so much because I necessarily felt a big sense of danger, but I don't think that it felt lacking that in the same way that maybe The Martian did a little bit for me when I thought about it.
I feel like, maybe you can correct me if I'm not hitting on the same thing as you. For The Martian, it felt like the longer the movie went on, the more it felt like everything was going to be fine. It didn't feel like there was too much of a scare that was building in tension. This one, the longer it went on, it did feel like there were going to be heavier consequences. Every single time that they turned, it did feel like the consequences were stacking on each other until we got to the end.
It felt like the main character was going to have to make some big choices, and there was going to be consequences because of those choices, where, obviously problems kept propping up in The Martian. It always kind of felt like, this movie's a comfort blanket. It's going to, they're going to figure it out. They're going to come up with a solution, and it's going to be okay. All right?
Right.
They're going to science the shit out of it, if you will. Whereas, this movie does have problems, and it does have problem solving, of course. It has a bit of that in the flashbacks, it has a bit of that in the present day stuff, and it is somewhat engaging, and I like how it tackles some of those problems. Shout out to Carl, and one of my favorite friendships that's formed on cinema in recent years is Ryan Gosling and Carl. Which without, I won't spoil too much to give context for that, but I don't know. I found myself oddly into this friendship that kind of formed out of nowhere very early on in the movie.
Oh yeah, no, and it's so that's the thing about this movie is it's so charming and it's so humor filled that even the parts where they're not actively making jokes, you still find yourself laughing and smiling, and you're happy about it. As much as it hits some really hard emotional stuff later on in the movie, it balances it out perfectly throughout. I don't think there was any point where I was like, well, this is just a misery fest. This is just dealing with the fact that this guy is trapped out in space by himself. It's no, he's funny. He has a good time. And even if we are dealing with the fact he's trapped out in space by himself, he's fun to be with in general. So it's not like it's that bad.
It's a good example, and this goes for both the book and maybe Drew Goddard as well as a screenwriter, knowing how to put it into terms for a movie. But given both this and the character in The Martian, or all the characters in The Martian, but it's particularly the main one who's on his own, who has to survive. Like, clearly these two writers, both the author of the book and the screenwriter, are both very good at doing character writing. They're both very good at it. And it's just, I just yesterday saw Ready or Not 2 for Screams. And it's I mean, a lot of people like those movies. I'm very lukewarm. I don't like them very much. And it's a movie that felt like it was constantly trying to be funny, and I just don't like the humor. Part of that is a subjective thing, of course, but it was so, like, the contrast of watching this the very next day, and within 30 seconds of Gosling, not so much the opening scene, because when he's waking up, because he's not really interacting with anyone, he's kind of scared and whatever, but like, as soon as he's in a scene with people, he's in a classroom teaching, because that's what his day job is at the start of the movie. It's like, as soon as he's interacting with his students, it's like, oh, this is very likable. Like, he's I like him already. Like, and it's not just because it's Ryan Gosling. Like, he is fundamentally got things going on here that work, and it does character setup where it's like, oh, the kids are asking about this thing that was just on the news about the sun and Venus, and he's trying to dodge the question because, it is setting up some of his personality traits that he would rather dodge the questions than answer the difficult ones. It sets up character, it's likable, it does all these things in a very economic fashion within like a minute of screen time in this classroom scene, and sets you up for the rest of the movie. And the movie I watched yesterday, it was like, here's quips and references and jokes and, like, can you believe that just happened type of humor constantly.
I was about to make that joke, but I'm like, well, I haven't seen the movie. I don't know if that's what we're talking about, but it seems like it.
Oh, no, I mean, it's just that thing where this one big crazy thing that was interesting in the first film kept happening throughout the second one, and almost every time the sister character is like, I'm not getting used to that. We're still saying that just happened. But effectively, in other words.
I want to make like a meta movie where, like, I just watch a bunch of movies that say, well, that just happened, and every time someone does, I turn to the camera and say, yeah, they just said that.
I never made that point in the Streams review, actually, where I actually say it's a that just happened type of humor, but I should have done. Damn it. Well, not a good... that's the thing. The good movie the next day brought it out in me, because I'm realizing what was wrong with the other one.
I mean, just to comment on the one thing you said with, like, the references and stuff like that, I have no idea when this movie is set. Like, it is so like, I don't want to say evergreen, because there are aspects of it that are probably like a little bit tied to a specific time period, but for the most part, like, you could tell me this is set anywhere between 2010 to like 2050, and I'd be like, yeah, that's fair.
I mean, I think the idea is it's the future just around the corner. It's because everything's still a little bit more advanced for the space travel, so you just accept it's a little bit in the future. But the references, because there are some references in this that are used fairly well, but there's stuff that are mostly from like the 70s, or even earlier in some cases, and I think that makes it's the same way that using classical music in 2001 doesn't date it, because it was already old music by the time that movie came out, so it just feels like you're using old stuff. And maybe it also fits because Ryan Gosling's the one making the references, and like, he grew up with this stuff, so it makes sense from but that also means that it's roughly present day, otherwise he wouldn't have grown up with this stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I'm huge on 80s music. I wasn't alive during the 80s, so you could have just learned it. True.
But hey, now a lot of good stuff to talk about in here. A very, very pleasant time. And, the runtime, to be fair, I think did go in fairly quick, especially once the main thing in the movie hit. From that point on, I just didn't feel the runtime at all. So. Oh, yeah.
I will say, I don't want to call it a false ending, because it's not. What they end up doing feels like it is the actual ending, but
I think on the point you're about to make is there was a moment where I thought it was going to fade to black on an ambiguity, sort of like a hopeful ambiguity, but like ambiguity and just like go to credits, and I was surprised that there was another 5 minutes just kind of like giving me more blatant things that I wasn't expecting.
Oh, I wasn't even talking about that. I was going about, I'd say probably 20 minutes before the end.
Oh, okay, all right. We're going way further back. Okay.
Yeah, where it's like, okay, so this is like, the thing has happened, we've done the thing, fade out, and then like it keeps going, and they introduce yet another problem that they have to solve, and I'm like, as it was unfolding, I was like, are we like, I felt like we got to a pretty good mark here.
I think actually, I don't know if I had the exact same thought, but there was definitely a moment where it was clear they were interested in a new thing to deal with. And I thought, do we need another new thing? But as soon as it set it up and it basically set up what the character then had to do, I was like, oh no, this is perfect. No, like, I take all my apprehension back. This was the right choice.
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly the point I was going to make, where I was just like, there's, as it's unfolding, there's this apprehension. And then the moment that like it lays out what the choice is, I'm like, perfect.
The point, Once it gets to the point of this new situation it's like, okay, I get why you're doing this. This makes complete sense. And works even better than just what if it had just ended like a minute before. Oh,
yeah, absolutely. Like it's the little bow at the end where it's like, hey, remember all those themes we set up? Here we go.
Yep. All right, I think we have to say spoilers so we can start talking about everything in the movie. So, the movie looks good. You know, it ticks all the boxes on the technical front. So.
I would argue there's certain things in this that I am not convinced they didn't just do practically. Like, it might have all been special effects, but some of it looked very, very well done.
There's a lot of practical stuff in here. Obviously, there's some stuff that has to be CG, but like there's a lot of practical stuff in here for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Spoilers for Project Hail Mary. You have been warned.
The real review begins now.
Yes, so we'll have to get into it. I think we'll probably tackle the first chunk and we'll do things in order. I imagine the Earth stuff, like we'll probably do whenever we just feel like talking about parts of that. Once it starts intercutting more frequently. But before we get to anything in order, let's just get it out of the way. This is a movie about befriending a 5-legged rock creature who becomes to be named Rocky, that Ryan Gosling meets in space.
Do you think that the movie Arrival is a bit too down and like not happy and chill enough for you? If so, have I got the movie for you?
It's Arrival meets E.T. in the style of The Martian. That's the movie.
That's it. Yep.
That's the movie.
Move on to the ratings. That's all we need to say.
But I don't mean that in any sort of negative way. I'm not trying to put it down. Like, I actually think it like blending those ideas together and doing this, like, it's kind of touching story. Because the whole thing with the character is that he doesn't really have friends. He doesn't have a family. He's a bit of a coward. He, all these things. And it literally, he needs to be in this life or death. The fate of the entire world is resting on his shoulders, and only then does he finally put in a position where he's forced to make a friend, and it's just this touching story. And I think for introverts, which I definitely am, it's very easy to relate to the idea that you have to be forced into a room with someone to actually get to know them, befriend them. Just here the room is like, space, like just really out there in space.
Let's think of the most confined place we can. I know, the vastness of the universe. Perfect.
Well, I don't even think that's a funny line. I think it kind of is confining, just in the sense that, like, even though it is so open, you're so far away from anyone that it is. Yeah.
No, this is absolutely one of the main central themes here, is the idea of loneliness and like what that does to you, and then the addition of friendship and like just how like important that is, not just in like it almost reminds me of like the Interstellar sort of thing, where it's like, oh, love transcends all whatever's. Like, this feels the sort of thing of like friendship is universal across all alien species as well. Like, it's something where if this were a much worse movie, I feel like it would be the sort of like Kirk banging every type of alien sort of thing, where it's like, oh, Rocky is clearly a female who's attractive, and we turn this into a romantic thing. Whereas this is like, no, they're just like two bros who are hanging out, and it's so fun to just watch that happen.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, it's tough to know where to even start with I guess we just go back. I
guess what's the problem? What's wrong with the sun? I feel like that's the easiest place to start.
Sure. But what I do want to say though is I love the idea. The reason why we encounter alien life is because this problem that's happening has drawn two ships from different civilizations to the same spot. That's how he runs into Rocky's ship, is because he's there to try and solve the same problem, because it's also affecting his home world. So I like that. And what is that problem? Yeah, let's get to that. So scientists have sent out a probe to have a good look at Venus. They're going to have a nice look at the planet, what's going on there, blah, blah, blah. And they discover that something which is connected in what they're calling the Petrova line, this microscopic entity, these little beings are basically eating the sun, right? They're absorbing the energy, they're using that to beam to Venus and back again or whatever, and it's slowly going to erode the sun. And in 30 years time we're going to lose like half the population or something like that because of coldness. Farming's going to suffer, all that usual stuff, right? So the world's doomed if this keeps going on. How do we solve this? And that's kind of where it starts. And then the big, if we're getting to space, just to sort of skip to that part of it quickly, they figure out that every star, it's almost like a disease that's spreading from star to star almost in the galaxy, but there's one star that is unaffected. Why is it unaffected even though it's in the middle of all of them? We have to send someone there to find out so we can try and fight this thing. It's like the only clue we have in order to solve this, and that's what the whole mission is to go there and get the data, get the information or whatever they can find and send it back. And there's more to it, we'll get to, but that's the gist of the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, just to add on a couple of things with that, it wasn't even, I think, a probe. It was just like someone in their backyard with a telescope, and they noticed in the infrared spectrum, there's like this line that's connecting Venus and the sun. And that infrared stuff comes up over and over again for some very striking visuals in this movie. And then, the idea of it is that there's little... They don't know that they're creatures when the movie starts.
That's right.
They collect the stuff, and they're like, okay, are these things alive? Are they whatever? And they call them astrophages. And like you said, they basically eat the sun and then use the energy to go over to Venus. But the other mystery is, why do they need to go to Venus? Like, why not go to Mercury if it's so much closer? Why are they going to Venus and then back to the sun over and over again?
Yeah, because it's the probe that gets the samples, obviously, and we get Ryan Gosling as a school teacher, and what's her face, Sandra Hüller, yes, from Zone of Interest and Anatomy of a Fall, right? That's what I know her from.
I'm surprised you recognized her. I had no idea who this was, and nothing she'd done either.
I'm a man of culture, David. That's fine.
Fair enough.
But she shows up and she's like, "Hey, you wrote this like provocative science paper about how life doesn't actually need water." To potentially, and he's not a crazy man. He's not. Obviously, it's important to all life on Earth, but he was theorizing that maybe on other planets, maybe other life has formed differently. It doesn't need water.
There's nothing inherently about hydrocarbons that says life comes from them. It could theoretically be any element.
But that gets him in, and this leads to maybe the first big sequence that really kind of makes him a bit of a winner for the audience, I think, where they put him in like a hazmat suit, they put him in this glass box to like study these samples that they've brought back, and her and a bunch of like military generals and high up looking people are all just behind these windows watching, and the way he like turns and sort of like just comments to them and almost makes fun of them asking for updates, where you'll do something to the sample and he's like, "Oh my god," and she's like, "What is it?" Nothing happened, but then later on when he gets like a little success or something happens, he sort of fist pumps, and this like random guy in the generals who's got like a big beard just like gives him like a little fist pump back, and it's like,
oh yeah,
it's like, I don't know, it's just very endearing up front. Like it feels like he's a stand-up comedian in a room where no one wants to laugh, but he gets a few chuckles out of them anyway. And
and then it wraps up with the best thing is he eventually manages to kill one of the astrophages, like, because they're impenetrable to all sorts of like examinations or whatever until he kills it. And when he kills the one, he's like, well, we can find out what it's made out of. And then he does the scan. He's like, it's hydrocarbons. Son of a bitch.
So yeah, and it's kind of this thing where it's like, okay, he keeps saying that he's not really suited for this. He shouldn't be involved. But when he tries to sort of keep giving advice, she's like, hey, look, do you want to be a part of this investigation? Like, you can be a part of it. And we'll set you up here with a few samples to keep studying. And Carl, the bodyguard, he'll stay with you and, kind of be your supervisor. Well, not supervisor, you know what I mean? Like he's the government man there.
Yeah, he's the liaison.
And he's like, yeah, okay. So he has to commit to it. Say, I want to be a part of this. I want to help and try and save the world, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he's very wishy-washy like the whole time.
Yeah. He's not. It's not like he's like dedicated. He's like, oh, I've got a dream. I want to do the honorable thing here. It's like, yeah, okay, I guess I want to do it. Yeah, I admit it. I want to help save the world. And this leads to like almost just a little like 5-10 minute like wonderful short friendship between him and Carl, where at first Carl's very standard. He's got a stoic bodyguard. He's just sort of quiet, doesn't really say much. But Ryan Gosling interacts with me, asks him questions to sort of get his mind going. He's like, hey, so why this, why that? And the big question he sort of asks at one point is, why go to Venus? Why not go to Mercury? And he's like, well, maybe they want fresh air. And he's like, but Venus is like nothing but, CO2. And he's like, well, maybe that is fresh air to them. And Gosling's like, do we have an expense account? Which leads to them at whatever hardware store just buying shit tons of like tape and wood and
duct tape and plywood.
Yeah. And it's like, okay. And it's this charming little montage of them bonding by like just playing games with as they're getting like I can only imagine the employees in the distance of this store just being like, they better buy all these things. If I have to clean up one roll of tape because these two assholes are playing basketball with the shopping cart, I'm going to be so pissed.
Oh yeah, and then they're checking out, and the person checking them out is just like, do you have any coupons? And Carl's like, we don't need coupons. We're the government. She's like, which government? All of them.
Yeah, that's actually a very cheesy line, but I kind of like didn't mind it because it felt like Carl was actually making a joke as opposed to being serious.
I think at that point they were both wearing sunglasses as well. Like it was absolutely just for the sake of the joke.
Well, I think they were safety visors, but yeah, the same idea. Yeah,
they look like sunglasses.
Yeah, but they were making her like scan them while they were wearing them. Like they didn't put them on the counter for her to scan them. They was like, no, I'll just lean over, give them a scan.
Yeah. So basically the whole thing that they're testing is they're just going to simulate a carbon dioxide source a la Venus, like trying to make it seem like it's Venus, and see if the cells do anything. And immediately, the moment they turn on the carbon dioxide, those things just zoop right out of the testing container right over to it.
But it's like, oh shit! But they're not in like a container. Like, what do we do? Like if we let any light come out into this box, they're going to just use the light to escape because that's what they do. And it's actually Carl who has the idea. He's like, well, let's just put this box inside another box so that there's no light. And he's like, Carl, you're genius. They tape up all the windows in the little like office with the windows and all that, and then he goes in and it's like, oh shit, we just made them mate. Right? That we've gotten more than the 3 that we started with. They've reproduced. How did we do that? And that's where they come
to the final theory that he ends up having to present to all the scientists is the reason they're going to Venus is because that's where they mate. The CO2 allows them to mate there.
Which is very interesting to them because it turns out that the other scientists have figured out how to use these things as a fuel source. If you can make them move around as if they're going to CO2 or whatever. They explain it in depth at one point. I'm not even going to begin to like pretend to have understood exactly what they said there. But it was like, no, this can fuel our ship that can actually move fast enough to potentially get to this star. That was the whole thing. And there's a whole bit here where like, oh, we can't tell him. And then he's like, tell me what? And then Wüller's just like, I hereby give you top level clearance to Project Hail Mary. He's like, Project Hail Mary? My favorite part of this scene though is that when he walks in and he thought he was going to his bedroom to like lie down for a bit, and he's like, there's just this room full of like government people, military people, and scientists, and he's like, oh shit, I need to make a presentation. Oh no! And then as he's describing the conditions and them having a baby, he the way he phrases it is, so we gave them some carbon dioxide, and whoop, there it is, crickets. But then a minute later, when the other scientist is explaining something. And then Ryan Gosling jumps in and sort of like finishes it off and like gets it. He's like, oh, and that'll let you do this. This random scientist is like, whoop, there it is. And I'm like, he just bonded with someone else.
Here's the thing. During this bit of the movie, I was having such a good time. Like but like, I was very conscious of the fact that no character that we had been presented with yet was like serious. You know, every single character, despite the fact they're talking about the world ending, everyone's got this more lighthearted, jovial attitude to it. And this early in the movie, I was still kind of like, is this going to be something that like people are complaining about? Is this going to be something that like, you know, oh, why is everyone like just cracking jokes all the time?
So what did you need? Did you need Aaron Eckhart with his peach and the aerosol can?
I needed them to explain, to get through space, you got to fold a piece of paper and shove a pencil through it. But no, I as the movie progressed, I was like, you know what? I don't think anyone could hate it just because this movie is so lighthearted that, like, you know, you're not supposed to be dour and thinking about the end of the world throughout this whole thing. You're just supposed to be focused on how does Ryan Gosling relate to other people. That's all you really need to be focused on here.
Because it knows what tone it's going for, so it never feels like it's confused, right? Like, I think in a movie that's messier, you'd be like, well, am I supposed to be feeling doomed here and like feeling like the tension? Am I supposed to be feeling like the humor? This movie clearly knows exactly, and it's an interesting tone. It's not like it's just a comedy either. Like, I think that would be very disingenuous to say that's what all this is, because it's not. But yeah, like, so all this stuff, and it's like, okay, you're going to help train these astronauts, particularly the science officer who's going to be on the ship, so they can, one, run the engine that has this stuff in it, but two, also to collect the right samples, what to do when they get there, that kind of thing. And they talk about having redundancy pilots, and there's some flashbacks showing like him not really interacting with them all that well. Hüller is also kind of a weird stoic person who doesn't get humor, and that kind of thing. Which,
and they form a little like minor connection between themselves.
Man, it's very much though, because it's never like, oh, this is a potential romantic thing or anything like that. It's just like, we're the two awkward people, and we're kind of acknowledging that we understand each other, to the point where she ends up doing some karaoke, almost just to prove to him that, hey, I said I could sing. I'm going to show you that I can sing. But I love how she ends the song like 2/3 in, but just going, that's enough, and just walks away.
Yeah. Doesn't stay for the applause, just walks out of the room.
I will say, though, the flashback, because obviously the whole time you're like, okay, he's not supposed to be going on this trip, but he's going to be on this trip, right? So, and
the big thing I don't think we mentioned yet is the movie opens with him having like full amnesia. Like, he doesn't know who he is, he doesn't know why he's here, any of that. Yeah,
we'll get to the space stuff in a minute. We'll just stick with the Earth stuff, because honestly, we're almost done with it, to be honest. But honestly, this leads up, because you know something's going to happen where he has to go on the station to at least the science person, presumably. But both science people are taken out because this stuff can be volatile if they don't do the right thing with it. And this might be one of the more surprising out of nowhere explosions I've seen in a movie in recent times, because it's just a scene with Gosling and Hüller talking and bonding even, and they're out in the cold and they're talking about whatever, and then out of nowhere this giant explosion. Like, I almost thought it was a nuke the way it went up in the background. It was so huge.
That's the thing, is they did it in such a smart way where it's way off in the background but still visible in frame, and like by the time that you notice it's there, you have like a half second before the shockwave hits, and then everything just goes to hell.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. And it's like, okay, both because it was the scientist and the backup scientist doing the experiment, they're both dead. We need to launch like in the next month, or we have to wait like a year, so we can't do that. And he's like, oh, yeah, I mean, who can we get to go on the mission now? Gosling says, and they all just look at him because he's clearly qualified for at least the science part. I mean, as he rightly points out, I'm not an astronaut.
Yeah, well, he harps on the not an astronaut bit for like 30 seconds, not even, until someone's just like, yeah, but we are. Like, we'll take care of all that stuff. You don't really have to do anything. Like, that's all just for show. But most of his arguments and everything keeps coming back to is he's not a hero. Yeah. He doesn't want to, like, he doesn't feel he can do this. And the other bit that I don't think we've really mentioned that much is this is a suicide mission. Like, they have enough of this fuel using the astrophage to get there, but they don't have enough to get back. So anyone who goes there is dead.
And that's actually a big part of this, is that he's like, hey, you're asking me to give up my life to go on this mission. And they're like, yeah, we kind of need you to. And if you don't, you're just going to die with all of us a little bit later, and slowly and painfully anyway.
Yeah, that's the thing. When they're talking about, like, okay, here's the reasons why you should do it. Not only do they say, like, if you don't do it, then the whole world's going to die anyway. But they even bring up the point of, like, you don't have any family. You don't seem to have any friends. You don't even have any pets. Like, what are you really leaving behind to go there? And you can tell at that point in the story that he is, wrestling with that. He's wrestling with the idea of like, okay, you've just pointed out how little I have here. What is the reason I'm able to really say to allow me to continue living? Like, what do I actually point to? And in the end, he doesn't really have anything. He's just like, I don't want to do it.
That was a conversation he had with the captain of like, in an earlier scene where they're talking about like how do you do it? How do you get this brave? And he says something to the effect of, well, you just find someone that's worth being brave for, that gives you the courage because you want to save them. And yeah, that kind of comes back up here without saying it, in that, yeah, he doesn't have anyone to be brave for. There's literally no one motivating him to go and make this big grand gesture of giving his life to save everyone. So he's effectively a coward here. And it's interesting in the structure of the movie that when we see these scenes of him trying to run away and basically Hüller forcing him by like knocking him out with a syringe and chasing him, like she has men chase him out over the grounds as he's trying to run away so that he doesn't have to go. It's kind of funny, but it's also very sad. And you do feel bad for him still, because I'm like, I get why he's scared of doing it, and he's literally been forced in. It's like he's going to wake up on the spaceship with like no memory of getting on the spaceship, and he's already going to be in space. It's like, well, shit.
On top of that, like most of these flashbacks up till this point have been fostering that camaraderie between him and whatever her name was, the scientist in charge, I guess you want to call her.
I mean, the actress is Hüller. I'll just keep calling her that.
Yeah. Fuller, fair enough.
Sorry, Hüller. It's not Hüller. Hüller.
Hüller. Okay. Yeah. It's fostering that friendship between Hüller. And when she says like, okay, well, I'm not giving you the choice, she does phrases like, I hope you don't see this as a betrayal. And he's like, I do. I absolutely do.
I do.
Yeah. So this one friendship, this one thing that it feels like he's fostered has absolutely ruined the rest of his life, and that kind of just filters out from there.
But it is interesting that by this point in the movie we already like him so much, because by the time we see this scene, we're so far into the plot with Rocky, in terms of the movie structure. So it's a very interesting thing to finally see just how much of a coward he was before he came onto the ship, which, I will say the one critique I might have of the space stuff, to sort of go back to the start of the movie now from the space side of things, is the amnesia thing kind of felt like almost irrelevant to me, because like he wakes up, there's one moment where he's like, okay, I've got all this knowledge, I know what all this stuff is, but I don't know who I am or why I'm here, and he does some math to figure out where he is, and there's a line where he says out loud, wait, this isn't our sun. Like he's done enough math to realize, like, I'm not like near Earth's sun, I'm near another sun somewhere else. And it's like, okay, that line kind of landed quite well, because it's like, okay, that reveals something, because by this point we don't know what the plan is yet for the space mission. But honestly though, it felt like after a couple more flashbacks, he just like, he knew what he was doing, like he knew who he was now, right? Like I don't know if because there's like one moment where he looks in the mirror like after a couple of flashbacks, and I think that's the moment where it's like, oh, it's kind of coming back to him now, or at the very least we're meant to believe that as we're seeing these flashbacks he's remembering all this stuff. And that's kind of it just kind of felt like at a certain point though, and this is honestly like my biggest critique of the movie, and it's not a big deal I don't think, because ultimately it didn't matter for the rest of it, but the amnesia thing felt like it didn't matter after 20 minutes.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I was saying with the first act having some weirdness to it. And that's exactly the same thing is the amnesia part. There's a point where he is like, I think he's looking at a map or something, and he does some math to like figure out how long it's been since leaving or whatever like that. And I'm like, you remember this, you remember enough to like know the fuel, you know how much, like when you left or something like that. Maybe you got it from the computer, but you don't know your name. You don't know how you like. It just felt like the amnesia was very selective for the sake of revealing those first couple flashbacks, and then after that, like you said, there's a point where the flashbacks just come in anyway, so it didn't feel like the amnesia was really necessary for it. Yeah,
and I think the shock of the other two crew members being dead when he wakes up is more than enough for him to be freaked out at the start of the movie, to like sort of have to gain a bit of like control and like sort of toughen himself up a bit to try and get the job done. That would be enough, and then just play the flashbacks like it does anyway. I don't know, the amnesia part just felt like maybe in the book there's much more reason for it, but here in the movie it just kind of felt like I don't know, a contrivance, and it's the only plot detail in the whole movie, honestly, that I felt was strange to me.
Yeah, I think it's also, this is another thing that I had with The Martian, is that this movie obviously covers a lot of time passing. And I can tell that a lot of time is passing, but in between any two given scenes, I couldn't tell you how long it's been. Like, it doesn't feel like I don't know how long between the beginning of the movie to him arriving at that star it really has been. It could have been like anywhere from 3 days to a month, and I don't really get a vibe for that either.
Yeah, I mean, you get the sense of time passing enough once he meets Rocky, just because, like, oh, we got to a point where we were communicating this well, so obviously some time has moved on and so on. But they did say at one point that the trip to the star takes 4 years. So we can kind of lock in, and which makes sense because it's not like he looks significantly older when he's on the ship. You know, it doesn't look like he's suddenly aged 10 years. Like 4 years sounds reasonable. It doesn't seem like he would look that different kind of thing. So that's all fine. But yeah, I mean, once we're in the space stuff, and there's some comedy where he's like arguing with the computer because the computer keeps saying, "Oh, pilot detected," and like, "No, I'm not a pilot. I'm not a pilot. Don't make me fly the ship."
And like he's just searching through everything, trying to find any sort of self-identification or anything to like jog his memories. And we do get mellow moments when he comes across the dead other crew members, and he's like, "Oh, geez, all right, what happened here?"
Yeah, but he does ultimately kind of know what's going on, who he is, and what he's there to do by the time he gets close enough to like get the infrared camera out and look at the star and all that, in the planet. And he's looking at the line, the Petrovia line that's going from the star to the planet. And I love the reveal of the alien ship because it's just, wait, there's a break in the line. Why has it got a break? And then you sort of look at it for a second and you realize, oh, it's because there's something in front of it. That's all it is. I love that. I love how quickly my mind just sort of went to, oh, this is just an alien ship trying to solve the same problem. They're here for the same reason. This is like a nexus point. It's why we're going to encounter each other, because we're both trying to solve this same problem that's affecting both of us. And from there, it's just like, okay, I love how alien this ship looks, because obviously it's not wood, but when I first saw it, it looked like wood. It looked like this weird wooden lattice structure, like going through space.
Yeah. Just to throw it back to Interstellar, like it looks like at the end the 4D like weird thing that he falls into. Just imagine that, but turned into a spaceship.
Yeah. Turns out it's actually xenon, but xenon is usually a gas, so like that's weird. But it's like, okay, they've got metal xenon from this planet. That's cool.
Why not? And then basically the next, I don't know, what would you say, 45 minutes, hour of this movie is just let's speed run arrival. Let's just make that happen.
Yeah. It obviously it's doing it in very different ways, but I do think it's very natural, because the way it starts off is the ship just pulls up next to him, and there's a comedy beat here where he tries to just pilot the ship away, and he, at one point he even just nudges it back a few bits, and then the alien ship just matches the movement. It's like, no, I'm not leaving you alone. We're going to interact, me and you, right? Luckily, Rocky turned out to be a very outgoing person. He wanted to befriend whoever's on the ship.
Yeah. Absolutely. Oh God, I love Rocky as a character. And then the like literally the first thing it says is like, all right, let's establish contact, and it does it by like chucking over a little cylinder, which
just hits off the ship.
Like, it just completely misses it. He thinks it's a bomb, and he's just like completely misses it. And then the second one comes at him much slower, and they're like, wait, why is this one slower? Oh, they think I'm an idiot. They think I can't catch this. All right.
To be fair, like, maybe it's also just like, oh, that was too fast for him to catch. I wouldn't assume it was in question his intelligence, but I did laugh when he said that line. It's like, they're judging me. They're judging me because I didn't catch that. And then obviously he misses that one. You don't see him miss that one, but by the time he suits up in the spacesuit and gets ready to go, they must be on the fifth one by now, the time he gets there.
Then he pops it open, and inside is like little scale models of his ship and him. No, that's not the first one. No. What's the first one?
Well, before he gets to that, I just want to mention that he's actually shit scared of even going out into space, and he's like, no, I'm not doing that, and he's a coward again, but then he sort of falls anyway, and ends up just like, okay, I guess I'm out, I'll grab this thing. When he opens it, first of all, he can't open it, it's not working, and then he realizes he needs gravity, so he puts the ship into rotate mode, or whatever you want to call it, so he gets that, the centrifuge, and he is like, okay, now it just unscrews, all right, cool. And he tests it. He's like, wait, xenon, that's meant to be a gas. What the hell? And then he looks inside it, and it's like a spiky thing. But he looks at it long enough where he kind of like gets what it is, and he's like, oh, like he's showing me like his map from where he's from to here. It's like it's basically all these spikes have little balls in the end, and it's basically and I guess a slightly different way of doing what do you call it? An os
orrery.
Thank you. That's what I was thinking of. Right. It's like, yeah, I was okay. That's interesting. And one of my favorite details is that when we do actually get to communicate with Rocky, once we get to meet him in a minute, is we get this sense that he doesn't have eyes. He uses echolocation to see things, so he doesn't need light. But it also makes sense why all of his messages are physical objects, because all of their communication presumably would be physical. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting, actually. I like the thought process there.
Yeah, he also has, to some extent, like a spider-like ability where it looks like he's able to just take xenon, like, seemingly from his body and just craft these things out of it. Like, he's almost creating it out of nothing.
Yeah. So, Ryan Gosling kind of, like, does some work with the computer to figure out what his version of this would look like, and he puts it back in the cylinder and fires it back over, and then he sends one over that kind of tries to imply, hey, I'm going to like send something over to dock, and we get a whole like arm coming out that docks with his ship and connects the two of them, and it's almost like Ryan Gosling goes out too early, because he gets in a spacesuit, he walks down this walkway, and he gets to this sort of like glass crystally kind of like barrier, and he like knocks on the thing, and we see this rocky creature as part of it anyway, and he basically sort of points to be like, no, go back, I'm not finished with the walkway yet.
they do the first contact thing where he's like, okay, all right, this is cool, like doing that, and then like they've got matching taps back and forth, and then Rocky starts tapping a lot, and he's like, yeah, I can match you too. And then he's like,
that's later.
That's not here?
No,
that's later?
That's the box with the thing in it that lets, is to tell him that he does oxygen. That's after the...
Oh, that's right.
Because he sends him back, and then he finishes whatever he's doing, and then when he goes back into the walkway, all of a sudden it's like 22 degrees Celsius, which is like, oh, that's like close to room temperature. It's almost like this alien has made it like habitable for him. And he gets up to the walk, and there's like a sort of glass crystal screen, almost like a prison screen, if you will, right? But in this case, it's not a prison cell. It's just that on his side, his atmosphere is for him, and then on our side, our atmosphere is for Ryan Gosling to breathe.
Yeah, it's an airlock.
Yeah. So it's like, so this is the bit where they're tapping, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm tapping. And Ryan Gosling even he tries to communicate by doing the Close Encounters tune. He's like, do, 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 do. And then Rocky imitates it. But he's pointing at the box, and he's basically trying to tell him, oh wait, you're trying to tell me there's oxygen in here, and he's like, take off the helmet. He's like, mimicking take off the helmet with because he's got 5 legs, there's Rocky, and he's using 2 of them to be like, hey, you can take off the helmet. And he's like, look, it's not that I don't trust you, but if I'm wrong, I'm just going to die. So I'm not going to. I'm sorry, I can't do that.
Yeah. It's a big ask. Yeah. I appreciate it. I'd say we'll get there eventually, but nope. Not gonna do it. But then as he's walking back to his ship, he's like, well, I gotta take a chance. And so he takes off the helmet, finds out he can breathe, and things get going. Yeah,
things get going. And there's some basic kind of like, okay, we'll try with numbers first, see if I can establish what one is. And then he realizes that just showing him a clock or a tape measure doesn't work, because he realizes he needs like physical shapes to see.
Yeah.
Because of the echolocation.
He goes, does some arts and crafts, gets some embossed numbers, glues them to the clock, and he's like, look, 1, 2, 3.
I kind of like, though, that it never implied, because I would have been annoyed if he recognized what a 2 and a 3 was. I think it just, it got across the idea that 1 is 1. The idea that you have one thing, so that you can then say, well, if you have 1 and 1, and then the alien can say what 2 is, and it's like, okay, that's 2. And then you start off building a translation with that.
Right, and that's the thing. Like, it's with how fantastical this movie is and not leaning so hard on the technical, like, yeah, we just established the fact that Rocky recognizes that it is a clock. He provides his own version of a clock. And
that's right,
pretty much for everything else in this movie, Rocky is intelligent enough to make up for Ryan Gosling's failures. Like, he gets what Ryan Gosling means, he says the thing, and then there also is the other little ex machina of a computer program that can analyze a sound, transcribe that sound with a specific meaning, and therefore, as Rocky speaks, he can just list off all the sounds in order.
To be specific, though, it's not the computer's not figuring that out. Basically, Ryan Gosling, for each sound that he makes, so when he gets him to make a sound for, like, say, his name, he just puts in Rocky. So now whenever he makes that sound, the computer says Rocky in text.
Yeah,
eventually,
it's
of
like
course,
a vocal dictionary.
Yeah. Eventually, of course, he does add, like, a voice to it, so we can hear, like, a voice for Rocky.
Yes.
But that comes a little bit later.
And that's where Rocky's humor just,
yes.
So smart.
But no, I like the thought. I mean, obviously, yeah, they did play a little bit fast and loose with like how much we hear of the actual noises and stuff. We just kind of hear the voice coming from the computer, but it works for the illusion of like, oh, that's just Rocky speaking. But you know, I do appreciate that there's still like times throughout where like he'll come across a word, he's like, oh, I don't know, like what word I'm trying to say, or like, you know, we need a word for this or that. There's a great payoff to that later on, actually, which we'll get to.
My favorite bit with the way that he speaks is when he has a question, there's a specific sound that signifies question. And so Ryan Gosling puts it in the computer as the word question. So anytime he's like, what about your home? Question. Like he phrases it like that. And I really appreciate that little extra touch for it.
Yeah, it makes it believable enough. It feels like there's some thought been put into this. And yeah, they get to bonding to the point where once they have been talking, right, and he's giving him the name Rocky because he looks like a rock, right? That's basically it. That's the idea.
His own name is this series, and his entire language is just growls and shrill shrieks and stuff like that.
But eventually, you know, Rocky like builds like a little like hamster ball like, with his atmosphere in it, so he can roll over and come into the ship. And there's a whole comedy montage of Ryan Gosling being like, I don't know, I feel like my privacy's been invaded, and he keeps hearing things and asking questions because he's making diary entries for, you know, people back home when they eventually get stuff back, and he's documenting all this stuff, and it's all very funny. It's all played for laughs, and Rocky being like, who are you talking to? Why are you talking? I can still hear you. Like, just all this stuff.
Yeah, and like the whole thing is they've already established by this point, like before they put up before he gets in the hamster ball while they're still working through the barrier, that they both want to solve the astrophage problem.
Yes,
like they've established they're working on that together. And once we get the hamster ball stuff, and like you get the bit where he's you know, because Rocky is unable to interact with things outside the hamster ball, Ryan Gosling is the one who has to do it, and Rocky just keeps on roasting him. Like every time he does anything, he's like, "You're not very good at this," and he's like, "Okay, thank you, Rocky."
Yes, Rocky's understanding of the technology is good. Your piloting skills are less than good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and they're doing a whole thing where he's having to pilot and this is much later on, but he's piloting the thing, and Rocky's just constantly giving him like, "Now left, now right. We're going to die. If you do this, we're going to die."
Yeah. So it's good stuff. You know, eventually the hamster ball also turns into, he's just built like a sort of like walkway, and like there's like a crystal like walkway for him to just walk around in throughout a big part of the ship. And it's like, okay, they've really bonded. They're befriending. There's like kind of like a sort of dome, like sort of mini holodeck kind of thing that Ryan Gosling goes into, just, you know, look at Earth and like feel like he's on the beach. And you can see there's a screen like in a sort of like octagon type shape. And he brings Rocky in there, and, you know, he straight up tells him about the Rocky movies. He's like, oh, in the third one he does this, but in the fourth one he does that.
That's the other little bit of just tech that they introduce, is that obviously with echolocation, he can't make out colors or lights or anything like that. It's just whatever the texture is, more or less. So he has a special crystal that he hooks up to a little, I guess you call Rocky's version of like an iPad. It's like a raised like needles or something like that, and it transfers anything that is lights and colors and stuff into a raised or set down projection.
I would basically say it's his version of a camera, right? It's basically just capturing what's there and like giving it to him in a way his senses can consume it effectively. So that's how he's like watching this stuff with them and getting to know this stuff. Honestly, one of my favorite bits when they were building like the walkway and during the montage, just a reference to Pop Me, is Ryan Gosling picked up this sort of like diamondy piece of glass, holds it to his face and goes, I'm like one of the villains in the Superman movie.
And Rocky's just like, I don't understand the reference. What are we talking about?
But there's a nice thing though, because when they get closer to the planet and they're doing more of their stuff, and it's like, oh, this is, you know, this star number 3 or whatever for because it's like so close to the star, And Rocky's like, that's a shit name. Like, we need to have a better name than that. He's like, well, we found it first. We can name it. You've got a wife. What was the name of your wife again? And he makes all these noises. He's like, I don't have a human word for that. And I was like, oh, I know what he's going to say. Ryan Gosling's going to call it Adrian. I know he's going to do it. And he does. He calls it Adrian, and that becomes like a sweet thing.
Yeah. So rewinding slightly to before the hamster ball stuff, we do get the tragic backstory a little bit here. I don't think we ever find out specifically what happened to Ryan Gosling's crew.
Not specifically, no.
Yeah, everyone was put into a medical coma for the sake of the flight. He woke up, but they just died along the way. So he is now the last one. But we do also get Rocky's side of things. Rocky is also the last member of his crew. I think they said there were like 20 originally on the ship, and all of them ended up dying. And Ryan Gosling puts together that they are a very advanced race, but they never figured out two things. One is relativity, and the other is radiation. And because of that, as he's talking to Rocky, he's like, hey, because of where your crew was like stationed at on the ship, which happened to be right next to like this thing, they probably all died of radiation poisoning. Like, you were the only one that survived because of where you were stationed. And Rocky felt like massive survivor's guilt over that whole thing. He was super upset that like he was the only one survived. And they introduced something with his race where when his race are asleep, they are effectively I'm not thinking the word paralyzed. And so because of that, there's this cultural thing where anytime one of them sleeps, someone else has to watch over them.
I like how that comes up, because Gosling, after they've been talking all day, and this is in the walkway before the hamster ball stuff, he's like, all right, I'm tired, I'm going to go to sleep. And he's like, what is this word? I don't know this word. And he's trying to explain it, and he sort of puts his head down. He's like, die? You're going to die? He's like, no, I'm not going to die. I'll get back up. But he's like, oh, I understand this, but like you're not going to have someone watch you? And he's like, what do you mean watch me? And that's how it kind of gets this idea that in their culture, they always have someone like guarding effectively, because they don't wake up if they hear something dangerous kind of thing, like humans might do. So it's like
they're locked into sleep for the period of time. There's nothing they can do.
So while it's awkward for Ryan Gosling at first, like he wants to like be there to watch Gosling sleep, and later on it feels nice when Gosling returns the favor. He's like, I'm going to stay by his side while he's asleep. And it's it's a little bonding thing that kind of works between them. So no, really good stuff.
Yeah, no, their friendship by this point is rock solid. Like, it's absolutely fantastic the way they're doing these things. And yeah, they're basically, they both come across like, okay, there must be something about the planet that they're going to, something about the thing that the Metrova line is going over to, so they both make their way over to the planet.
They deduce, I think, first of all, by analysing the line or getting a sample or whatever, they're like, hey, the amount of these things going to the sun and going to Venus are the same, but that's not right. It should be multiplying if they're reproducing on Venus. Why isn't that happening? There must be something there. And effectively, it's Rocky who figures out, oh, life. There's a predator. There's something that's killing them, and that's why the number's not increasing. That's why this star's not burned out, is because they are being mitigated by some other force. We just need to figure out what it is. And then it becomes basically this big mission where Rocky's just like, I'm just going to build a big chain, because Gosling points out that the ship isn't built for getting into orbit or into the atmosphere, so if it gets so close it's just going to fall apart and burn up. And he's like, oh, I'll just build a big chain. He's like, really? Like a 5 kilometer chain? And he's just sitting there, he's just like, yep, ting 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 ting, yep, just doing it. He's like, oh, so we're going fishing then? And he takes him to show him what fishing is on the screen, and it's like, yeah, we're going fishing, and that is literally what it is. It's a big chain with this ball that has like these little compartments that's going to scoop up stuff from the atmosphere, and that's a big action sequence in the sort of middle to sort of end of Act 2 of the movies, them doing this big set piece.
Oh yeah, no, because it's they go through the whole thing. It's very much of like, okay, we only have a limited amount of time that we can go down before we start losing orbit, and then we got to pull back up, or else we're not going to be able to get back out into space. And of course, a la The Martian, thing after thing after thing goes wrong, and they have to keep on trying to step up. But then the big thing at the end is, because some fuel line or something is ruptured, Ryan Gosling gets knocked out. He's unable to solve the problem, and so Rocky, who's been stuck in his hamster ball, has to break out of his hamster ball into our toxic environment to him, in order to fix things.
To kind of like give this the weight here is that Right, because there's a whole set piece where he's like dangling off the side of the ship trying to grab the samples, and like it almost goes away, and he has to be a little brave to go and jump for it and cut the line. And so there's moments of him showing that he's grown up here in this time, and maybe having a friend who believes in him might be a part of that. I think that's maybe a good point. But yeah, they get back in the ship, things seem okay, but one of the fuel things goes ruptured and it's leaking, and it's thrown around, and his head slams into the computer in front of him, and he does wake up a little bit though. Like he reaches over to hit the thing to turn to go into gravity mode, where it's when you spin the ship, but he can't quite get there, right? He kind of passes out just before his hand reaches there. So it makes it very clear to the audience what he was trying to press, and more importantly, it makes it very clear to Rocky what he was trying to press. He understands what he was going for, so he makes this heroic choice that is very affecting. Right, I think for people who get emotional during a movie, I think this is one of the moments in this movie you probably will get emotional, is him just breaking out of his hamster wheel. And the movie has made it very clear he cannot survive in our atmosphere. And I think the choice they made to film this is very good. So he hits the button, it goes into gravity mode, and he drags Gosling round to like the medical area, where the robots will patch him up. And the camera is like flickering in and out, the red lights are flickering, the camera's very shaky, so you're only getting brief glimpses, but in those brief glimpses you just get this sense that there's like tons of black smoke coming off of Rocky, like his outer body's just like boiling almost.
Oxidizing.
Yeah. It's like horrific stuff, and you're like, it's really sweet, and it's like, oh man, he's like practically sacrificing himself to save Gosling, which in turn sacrifices his homeworld, because I mean, even if Gosling wants to, he's not going to be able to go back to his homeworld and help them.
Yeah. So that's the thing, is like, this is the cure that they're looking for here, because it's life. It is a predator that feeds on the astrophages. This isn't just a thing where they're like, we figured it out, we can save the universe. Like, it's still someone has to go to that star, to the planet that they're breeding on, and introduce the predator. It's not something that's just going to fix everything all at once.
And Gosling figures this out after he wakes up. It's because Rocky he's crawled back to his hamster ball, but he's down, and it's like, is he dead? Is he just in like a extended sleep as he's healing? We don't know.
Right. So that's the thing, is you can't, because of the way they sleep, being like a paralyzed state where they can't be shaken out of it. Like, he doesn't know, but he is constantly going over, talking to Rocky, walking him through the process as if he is awake the whole time.
But Gosling figures out these things kill the I keep forgetting the name of them. What was astrophages, thank you. And we can figure this out, we can use these, we can save, but it's like, we do have to send them back to our home worlds, and they have to obviously, in our case, be introduced on Venus to so that it'll kill them off. There you go. And it's like, okay, that solves that, but Rocky's still... But at this point, I think the audience generally at this point is like, well, screw Earth. Rocky. How's Rocky? This is the important part, is how's Rocky doing? And, sure enough, like, he does eventually wake up, but Ryan Gosling falls asleep next to his hamster ball, and it's this kind of sweet moment where Rocky sort of taps on the thing to try and, like, get him up, and he sort of rolls around, and Gosling's like, just let me sleep a minute. And he's like, wait a minute. Rocky, you're up.
There is also a bit before this, and I think it's actually critical we talk about this, because it's a major turning point, is before they go down to do the fishing trip, before they go to do that.
Oh, I think I know where you're going with this. This is, up until this point, Rocky's been under the impression that Gosling can go home.
It comes out here where he's like, nope, this is a one-way trip for me. I'm fine. I made my peace with that. Like, they've got probes that he's going to be able to fire off back towards Earth. Like, that's how they're going to get the amoebas back over there. But he's like, yeah, no, I'm not going to be able to do it. And Rocky is super upset about that. He's like, no, that's not okay. Like, there's got to be something we can do about that.
And as soon as he says it's just a fuel thing, we just need more fuel. And he's like, well, how much do you need? He's like, 5 million kilograms of this shit. Like that, and he's like, oh, I can give you that. It means it'll take me a bit longer to get home, but it won't like stop me. So take it. Like, I couldn't save my crew, but I can do something about you. And Gosling like tears up and like hugs the hamster ball, and you know it's a whole sweet moment.
Rocky calls him out. He's like, "I thought you said you were at peace with it." He's like, "No, I just people just say that. That's not true." Jesus.
My favorite thing about this scene though is that before he gives him the solution, because I was already thinking before this scene, I bet Rocky's going to find a way to like help him get home. Like Rocky will have like extra fuel or whatever. But my favorite part of this scene is when he's explaining that, you know, he can't go home, he had to make this sacrifice, but he's made his peace with it to save everyone. Rocky's like, oh, like I don't have know what word I'm supposed to say for this, but you're willing to give up your life to save everyone. That's something. And Ryan Gosling says, well, it's stupid, but he walks over to the laptop that puts in like his dictionary, and he just types in brave. Like, I love the idea that Ryan Gosling had to go over and admit that he knew what he meant and like type in the word brave. It's such a good thing to force him to put that in writing, to like sort of give him the word. I love that. It's such a good writing detail.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, that's part of the other part of why the Rocky's quote unquote death, or you know, him not being okay, was especially hard hitting, because it was effectively a death sentence for both of them if he didn't end up making it out of here either.
Yeah, but you know, wake up, they figure some stuff out. There is another small problem where like the amino won't survive. They have to like also be able to survive nitrogen, because Venus is full of nitrogen, so they have to figure that out. They
literally fix it in a montage. So there's like, yep, and we fixed it. Moving on.
Yeah, but it is important though, because it's actually what leads to the problem later on, I believe. So there was a reason for it beyond just, you know, we have something else to fix.
Well, the thing that it technically leads to is that the containers that they were storing the amoebas in were made of that xenonite stuff that Rocky is able to make.
Yeah, but I think specifically what you said later on, and maybe I'm misremembering this, is that the process of making them like resistant to nitrogen in those containers also made them, I don't know if resistance is the word to this stuff.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I don't think it was so much that they were resistant to nitrogen. I think it was the fact that they bred multiple generations inside the xenonite. Like, it was the breeding process itself.
The point I'm getting at though is it wasn't like they weren't already naturally going to be able to get out of these things. It was their own scientific stuff that led to this being a problem later on. But anyway, so you know, they have a nice happy montage or two. They're and ultimately it's like, hey, we're getting ready to go home, and like you've got your ship, I've got mine. We've got our cures, and part of me was thinking, oh man, like as much as I don't necessarily think you need it to complete the character story, I do kind of want to see like the reaction on Earth of him saying I met an alien or something to that effect. And luckily,
I mean, he has all of the logs. Like true. He's absolutely able to do it.
And they gave me that one little moment of Hüller watching the log and like seeing the alien and sort of understanding like what he went through, and that was kind of nice. But that comes later, of course. So they say their goodbyes, and it's sweet. The wave, they do the mimicking dance. There was something they did the first time they met as well, and it was all very kind of, you know, he's trying to explain what the word goodbye means and all the things you would do here. He gifts him a laptop. It's like, hey, bunch of human knowledge on here. Have it that. You'll enjoy it.
Gives him the beanbag as well.
Yes, one of these bad boys, although his looks like Earth.
Which I don't think we ever explained. During the classroom section, there was a beanbag that had Earth printed on it, and they just used it as like a learning tool. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, they're saying their goodbyes, and it's kind of sweet, and like, oh, they'll never see each other again, but they feel like they're soulmates now. Not in a romantic way, just soulmates. So, on the way home, though, and this is the moment where it's like it started like focusing on something going wrong, and the computer starts saying, "Oh, like, you know, thing detected, thing that," and I'm like, "Wait, what are we doing?"
Ryan Gosling lays down for like the super sleep or whatever, and like, oh, okay, this is the end of the movie. Oh, hold on, we're getting an alarm noise. What's happening here?
Yeah, and I was thinking, do we need, like, I feel like we could literally just like fade to black after the goodbye, and it just be this hopeful they're both off to save their worlds, and we hope they succeed. We don't necessarily need to see it per se, but once he like gets the alarm turned off and he realizes what's happened and he explains it in a log, he's like, okay, you know, the basically the things the amemo have broken out of the containers, but then he sits down, and the moment where it's like it gets good and it's like, oh no, I see why they're doing this. He's like, these things have evolved to be able to break out of this xenon's metal. Rocky's entire ship is made of that. He is screwed.
and they specifically hunt down astrophages, which is what both of them are using for their fuel.
So he's like, okay, my friend that I made is absolutely screwed. And then he says, I can't do both. I can either go home or I can save Rocky. And I love that he doesn't even say it. It just cuts to him like putting stuff in the probes. Like, I've put everything in here. Here you go. Like, it was not even a decision. It was like, no, I'm saving Rocky. Like, good luck, Earth. Here's everything you need. Off they go.
Well, it's such a good evolution for the character, where he doesn't want to go on this trip because of the suicide mission. He's forced to go on this trip, and he like realizes that he's doomed, meets Rocky, is given a way out, goes on that way out, and then voluntarily makes the suicide choice that he rejected in the first part of the movie in order to help someone the way that he was supposed to help all of Earth. But now he gets to do both.
One may argue it mirrors the story of Rocky.
I especially loved when Ryan Gosling ran up the stairs to the Philadelphia Museum of Art. That was inspired.
No, that was a spacewalk. That was the equivalent of that.
Oh, right. Gotcha.
But no, he makes this choice, but it's not even a choice. That's what I love about the way it cuts to him just prepping the probe. It's like, no, this wasn't a choice, really. He said it out loud, like he would have to make a choice, but he already knew what his answer was. And he's triangulated, okay. He knows he's got the map from Rocky. He knows when they both left. He triangulates where the ship will be if he goes in this direction for, I think, about 5 days or 50 days even it was.
I was going to say, it was like 40, 50 days.
But, he carries the ship, and once again, we're like, is it already too late? Is it already going to have, like, caused too much damage? But he spacewalks over to, like, the port on the alien ship, and he taps in the window. And we get eventually the happy like tap back, and Rocky's there, and he's like, "It's okay, I'm here, buddy." And we don't even know for sure if he's noticed a problem yet, but it almost does imply that Rocky probably did know something was wrong. Like, stuff started to like act up, and now Gosling's here to like help fix it and like contain them. Because effectively, all he has to do to solve it in his ship was just like get like some wrap and like bag the container so they can't get out of the plastic, and that was it. Like it wasn't like a complex solution. It didn't seem like.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I was under the impression that like the Xenonite ship, Rocky's ship, was dead in the water. Like it had stopped because there wasn't anything where like they had to match up like in sync to get the bridge across or anything like that. He just jumped out of his ship and landed on Rocky's.
I took it to mean that his ship, I took it to the very least mean that he didn't notice him coming up, but yeah, maybe it means his ship was already having problems. I don't know if it was completely, like, done yet, though, maybe, I don't know. Tough to tell, but regardless, like, he gets to him, we see the scene on Earth of, like, them getting the video footage and, like, okay, we're going to start prepping the Venus trip, I guess, so that's,
Yeah. I really appreciate the fact because, the big thing is the sun is going out. It's going to cause these massive winter things that are killing crops and all this stuff like that. They've set the stakes here. I appreciate that, we've spent numerous years out in space. Like, to get there, to get the probes back, all of this stuff took numerous years. So when we look at them getting the probes and getting these videos, it's like blizzard conditions everywhere. Everyone's all bundled up the whole time. So it's like, no, there's still consequences, but at least humanity can survive.
Yeah. So they get started on that. And honestly, I thought it was going to fade to black before that scene. I thought like Gosling saying, "I'm here, buddy," and them having their happy moment was just going to fade to black. I thought that was going to, like, he's went for his friend and that's what he cares about, and cut to black. The character arc is kind of complete in a lot of ways. But we get the scene on Earth, but then we get this final sequence where Ryan Gosling wakes up in like a little house, effectively, and he's got like his robots there, and he talks to them, and there's a knock at the door, and he opens it, and like Rocky's in, like, it's kind of like the hamster ball, but it's more like, sealed in, so it's more like a suit than a ball, right?
Yeah,
same material.
It feels like God, what is it? The 1980 Dune,
yes,
like the armors that they had there.
Yeah, so, and he's just there, they're just banter. He's like, "Hey, we got to come out quick, come on, let's go." And we realize, as we see more, that they've basically given Ryan Gosling a big, like, biodome for Earth's atmosphere that he can live in, which is a beach, and there's fog, and he's living there. And Rocky's like, "Hey, we've just about, like, fixed your ship so you can go back to Earth whenever you want." And Ryan Gosling's like, "Let me think about it for a bit." And Rocky's like, take as much time as you want. It's like, yeah, you don't like if you want to stay, like you like it's nice that he was welcomed on the planet. Like they probably like he's a hero because he helped Rocky save their planet anyway.
I also especially love that for the rest of the movie, it's always been the computer talking. Like we just
that's a good detail.
Yeah, but here it's subtitled, and Ryan Gosling is seemingly able to understand everything that Rocky says, like having actually learned the language.
Yeah. It's a neat touch. It's a neat touch. And also, Ryan Gosling still just speaking English, which also implies that Rocky can just understand the English now as well.
Then again, it seems like Rocky has always been able to understand the English.
Yeah, I guess. I always figured... I think early on I assumed it was getting translated. Like, he had something to translate it on his side. I guess as the movie goes on, there's not really much evidence of that. But
yeah,
regardless, it's a nice touch at the end. And I laugh because the final scene of this is very similar to the final scene of The Martian, where Ryan Gosling goes over to like the cave and there's like a sort of like, you know, window into like the other side, which is where there's now a bunch of, you know, alien children. He's teaching a class. He's a teacher again. And he basically ends, I don't even know if, I can't remember if he says the exact question. Does anyone have any questions like at the end of The Martian? But
no, he specifically asks, who can tell me what the speed of light is, which is the same first question that he asked
at the start of the movie.
Child's classroom.
But the movie effectively ends with him asking a question and then all of the kids in class putting their hands up. Because that's how The Martian ended. I mean, spoilers for that, I guess. But, you know, he's in the classroom and all the college students all put their hands up. And I couldn't help but notice that, like, I almost feel like an intentional, like, calling card from like the author of being like, I'm ending this kind of the same way. But the context, wildly different, though.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No. I mean, this is... I didn't stay to see if there was any sort of post credits. I assume there wasn't. I haven't heard anything about it. But this ending here is like, I don't even, it's not even like it was out of left field. It didn't feel like it didn't suit the movie, but I also didn't expect us to ever end in that spot. You know?
I didn't expect to see the planet because you actually get like a wide shot and it's like it's got rings, but they're kind of vertical. Like they're coming, you know, they're not, you know, just, you know what I mean? Like it's coming over the top. It tilts
your head.
Yeah. And you get a sense of the structures, or again, it's either the kind of like wooden lattice of like the same kind of like the ship, right? Obviously, again, it's not wooden, but it looks like wood almost at a distance. And then, or the sort of crystal sort of glass that they use for like the windows and the suits and the hamster wheel and all that. There's a lot of both of those things. And it's nice that when they're walking along the beach, you can actually make out like giant like shapes of glass in like the horizon.
Yeah.
Just to sort of sell it. So yeah, I'm honestly impressed that they did this ballsy big ending swing where you see Rocky's homeworld, and it didn't feel gimmicky or cheap, and it didn't feel like it felt tacked on. It actually still felt like a nice way to end the movie. So credit, because they could have ended it with just the hope of, like it seems like they've probably done everything they could. They're probably going to save everyone and whatever. But no, they gave us the full happy. No, they made it back to Rocky's homeworld. They're best of friends. They're living kind of happily, maybe not ever after, but certainly for now, until he decides to go back and face Earth at some point.
Yeah. I mean, even if he does, I feel like this movie specifically shows the idea of like, yeah, when he left Earth, he had nothing. There was nothing tying him there. This planet at least has his best friend. And I feel like that's the sort of thing where he's like, I could stay here forever. Like, there's no reason I shouldn't.
And if he does go home, he's taught a bunch of alien children. Maybe a bunch of them have learned English by now. And like, yeah.
Oh yeah, no. Look, I'm happy that they showed that section of Earth being like in a nuclear winter, essentially, which means that America's government is absolutely too busy with that to start sending nukes and stuff to this star. Because God knows they'd be like, alien life.
Yeah, part of me's like, what if he comes back and brings Rocky as an ambassador to, you know, do some exchanging or whatever? And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like that you can't trust the other humans, Ryan. Don't do it.
No, that's exactly what that story would be. The day the Earth stood still sort of stuff. It'd just be like, nope, we came in peace and you messed it all up.
Yeah, they'd want to study him and put him on a table and dissect him and do whatever else.
And then we just remake E.T.
But yeah, it's kind of a whale story because obviously it still is about like, you know, finding a solution to save the sun, but we don't even go to our sun. We go to this other sun to investigate why it's okay, why there's only one sun in the entire system, that's fine. And then it's more about working. It's like making this new friend and like these one human and one alien working together to save both of their worlds because they both share the same problem. Like, and through that, they both have their character arcs with the friendship and all that. Like, I don't know. It's a surprising, heartfelt story that's not what initially it feels like. But at the same time, even the early stuff on Earth, like his weird, like, budding friendship with Carl kind of sets up this idea that he can make friends. He just doesn't put himself in the position to do so.
No, it's just this, I don't know, it feels like a story. Potentially it's like talking about like the male loneliness sort of stuff, where it's this idea of like, you know, how hard it is for guys to just get out there and make friends and do whatever. And especially I feel like it's leaning into that when it's the idea of he's not looking for a romantic interest. At no point in this movie is it a thing where I feel lonely because I want someone to love romantically. It's just he feels a general sense of loneliness, and Carl does feel that momentarily for at least some part of this. And it feels like he gets along well enough when he's working on the astrophage project with like all the other scientists or whatever. But obviously all that stuff gets flushed down the toilet when he's forced to go on this mission, and he ends up lonely again in space. And it feels like, okay, let's relearn that. Let's put him through the paces again. But now he has, as you said before with the captain, he has someone worth being brave for. He has someone that has that deeper connection because the other person is essentially just a mirror. It's also someone who has been put into this place of loneliness, not because they don't have like a mate or anything. We find out that they do. It's because they are essentially the only survivors on this trip, and they're facing down the same crushing loneliness of their entire planet will be destroyed otherwise. Yeah.
And notably when it's like socializing night and the karaoke's happening, like he's not getting involved. He just kind of looks around awkwardly at all the other astronauts and stuff who seem they're coupling up because they might as well. And he's just like, he's not even a part of that. He's not even, that's when he goes out to talk to Hüller, and it feels like, he cannot get, you know, in that kind of, he can't connect under normal circumstances in the way that other people do. And the only time he seems to thrive is when he's left alone with one other person. And then ultimately he is left alone with one other person for, you know, most of the movie after that. So,
it feels like he's the type that doesn't want attention. He's the type that is someone who, whenever attention is put on him, he's very awkward about it. He doesn't want that kind of praise or even like the potential for rejection of
that kind of goes back into that thing in his backstory where he wrote that paper and then everyone kind of mocked him for it. Like, no, this is stupid. You're outlandish. You're just you belong in that the weird like aliens abducted my granddaughter magazine, not like real scientific journals.
Yeah. And so he's just put this barrier up, put this shield up so that he can't get hurt again. And it's only when he has this one-on-one with Rocky, which again, he fights in different ways. He doesn't immediately just open up the friendship. As soon as Rocky forces his way in and moves into the Hail Mary ship, he's like, no, you need to leave. I need private space. But then they're building tunnels for him. And he's like, yeah, all right. I can't imagine not having Rocky around.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And I think I'm almost shocked that at one point we didn't get the Rocky score coming in to sell a big scene when they, not a serious scene, but something where they like succeed in like something and just have it come in. I don't know. Maybe that'd have been too on the nose.
I could see it happening, but for all the scenes that I would feel like it's appropriate for, they're too big of moments. Like you'd need it to be a minor win, not something major. Yeah.
But no, that's Project Hail Mary. It's very good. And it's reviewing very well, understandably. And is, it's nice to have a sci-fi movie come out, get good reviews, and also perform very well. I had a good opening weekend as well. Admittedly, I think the break-even number's quite high, but, you know, it's not like we need a sequel. Like, the story's finished, so we can be satisfied regardless. So,
I mean, I'm even more than just a sci-fi movie. I'm just happy to have a sci-fi movie that it manages to straddle that line of not being dour and depressing and just like, take a look at yourself, humanity, see what you've become. But it's also not, you know, looking at the camera and saying, yeah, that just happened. it's still funny. It does a great job with the humor the entire way through, but it still feels like it has something deeper to say.
All right, David, what are you rating Project Hail Mary out of 10?
Oh, God. I've been dreading this one because I really, I'm between two. I really don't know where I'm going.
If I get a clock where all the numbers have been physically formed, will it be easier to point at your number?
Not really, because then I got to figure out what to do with the minute hand.
I'll just score out 11 and 12. We're not using 11 and 12.
Yeah. I give it a 13. God. So I guess I'll just say out loud, I'm between an 8.5 and a 9.
Okay.
The thing is, when it comes down to 9.5s and 10s, I've been on record before that I feel like those are kind of reserved for ones that have a deeper emotional impact with me. Something that resonates with me more than beyond a normal movie does.
Like Human Centipede, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's I don't know if this movie did that for me. I feel like that's something I'm only really going to know on future viewings and how well the jokes continue to land, how much I still enjoy their interactions, knowing where everything goes. So it's tough, but it's a really, really, really good movie. I think I'm going to be charitable. I'm going to give it the 9.
Oh.
I think that it manages to get there for me because it's just after watching it, I left in a good mood. And by the way, didn't even mention this at the beginning. One of the best theater experiences of my life in terms of nobody was talking. I didn't see anyone on their phones, and everyone was laughing at all the jokes. It was just a good time all around. So yeah, no, I'll give it a 9. I think it's something special here. As much as I love The Martian going into this, and I still do, I think this is better than The Martian was.
I mean, that's a happy result. If you come out of this going, oh, it's better than the last one that I really liked of the similar creators and whatnot. I think I would agree that I like it a little bit more than The Martian, and I really like The Martian. I gave The Martian an 8. Really good, strong, solid 8. I think I'm giving this an 8.5. I think it's, I think there's a couple of things that dips into a higher score category-wise. Check out the ratings rundown on Patreon for that. But ultimately, I think it is in the upper echelon of great, right? Just falling short of being amazing. It's the sort of thing, yeah, maybe repeat viewings in time, it sinks in over time. Maybe in 10 years, I'll be so fondly looking back on it that it'll grow even more. But I do love how earnest it is. I love that it is this optimistic idea of a friendship and all that stuff. And while I did have a feeling like nothing bad will truly happen, no matter how much they're teasing it, here it felt a little bit more appropriate to feel that versus The Martian, where it felt like it should have been more nail-biting survival. Whereas this did have a little bit of that Spielberg and magic quality to it, where I'm it's okay that it feels like things are going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's a hopeful movie.
The fate of the universe is not the concern of this movie.
No.
It's absolutely whether or not this friendship can stand the test of time.
Yeah, it's basically just, the fate of the universe is basically just the metaphor. Well, it's not even a metaphor. It's literally just, will his world fall apart if he doesn't get over his shit, right? And no, he was able to get over his shit and make a friend, so his world will remain intact. Literally, in this case. So,
beautiful.
Yeah, simple stuff. But that is Project Hail Mary. So, hey, cool. We did another one. So I don't know if you actually want to talk about The Martian separately as homework, but
I feel like I already did for the most part. Yeah, 8.5. Solid movie. I did not regret sitting down to watch it again. I think that it was, it still holds up.
It's a very easy watch. A very easy, there's nothing hard about watching The Martian.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just flows so naturally. Each scene goes into the next one. It's very easy to understand all the techno jargon that they throw out. They do a good job of explaining everything. So no, it just fits in a special little place in my mind of, I like those movies that just problem solve, where it just shows the competence of the characters. Everyone is good at what they do, and let's just fix problems the whole time.
Yeah. All right, well, in that case, I'll tell you what's coming next week from the Atomic Cinema Experiment. So I probably told you this last time as well, actually, but Mind Warp is next, because we chose to swap the day this was coming out so it could come out not a full week earlier, but this week instead of next week. So this is actually on Saturday. It's what we collector's cut. But that meant that Mind Warp, which was supposed to be this week's episode, is now next week's episode. So Mind Warp is next week. It's a Bruce Campbell movie from the early 90s. If you don't want to watch it yourself and just listen to the review, I think that's fine. Not to spoil the thoughts that we had on it, but maybe don't go out of your way to seek that one out.
I wouldn't say this is on par with Project Hail Mary. No. Might be a little lesser.
No. But yeah, that is next time. Obviously, you can support Atomic Cinema Experiment, and as well as the other shows we do, check out Collector's Cut, our movie podcast where we go through seasons. We've got a couple of 2025 movies we're still doing before we move on to something else. On that, there's the horror movie podcast, Screams After Midnight, but all of these are supported over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, where you get the bonus ratings rundown segment for each episode of Ace and Collector's Cut. Plus, we do a monthly bonus show called Extra Reels, where we review some of the worst movies ever made. The most recent movie to go out for that was DOA Dead or Alive from 2006. We reviewed that. You can go and enjoy that as you wish. But yes, that's it. And thanks to everyone who already does support us. It really does keep everything going. But that is the show, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. We do appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction and computer ad salsa.